Well, welcome back to another review here on Josh Does Movies. We're coming off of an amazing movie with Everything Everywhere All at Once, and we're jumping right into the franchise of the Wizarding World, and more specifically, the Fantastic Beasts prequel series to Harry Potter. And this time, the focus is all around Dumbledore and Grindelwald. Um, I got a chance to go see Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore tonight, and to be putting out there just fine. I think this movie has a lot of things that people will like if you like, the Harry Potter Wizarding World type, movies and books and characters, but it has a lot of glaring weaknesses for me, and it has a lot of different issues throughout that. I couldn't get past too much. Um, this is directed again by David Yates, who did most of the uh, final movies of Harry Potter from the Order of the Phoenix all the way to the end, and the first three Fantastic Beasts movies. It was written by J.K. Rowling, this time being helped by another writer, Steve Kloves. You have Eddie Redmayne again leading as Newt Scamander, the zoologist of the Wizarding World. Jude Law's playing Dumbledore. Um, and then a couple of the other key characters that we have here is Dan Fogler is back as the Muggle Jacob Kowalski. Ezra Miller is playing Credence, or another name is Aurelius Dumbledore, as was potentially revealed at the end of the last movie. Um, Alison Sudol plays Queenie, Jacob's love interest in previous movies, who went to go follow Grindelwald, which leads us to the recasting of Grindelwald from Johnny Depp to Mads Mikkelsen. To get this out of the way quickly, I think this was a net positive overall for the series. I think Mads Mikkelsen's Grindelwald, both by writing but also by just stoicness, comes off as a more threatening and imposing villain. Um, I think one of the things that I noticed in this movie that I like that Johnny Depp's portrayal, as most Johnny Depp's portrayals are, can be very eccentric. And not to say he was bad at Grindelwald, but he was so eccentric and stuff. It reminded me a lot of Voldemort in the Harry Potter series, where you have a bad person who is really eccentric and emotional and giving outbursts. Grindelwald here is the very opposite of that in this movie, to where he's quiet, he's subtle, and he is dangerous throughout. Um, they have him do a couple moments throughout the movie that generally, I think, sets him up in a much different arc of being a very confident, quiet, and antagonist. What they also do very well in this movie is take the take the presumed relationship between Grindelwald and Dumbledore, Albus Dumbledore, and not only do they confirm it, but much of this movie is centered around the past history between Albus Dumbledore and Grindelwald, and how their prior life, um, how their prior life binds them per se. Um, Also in the cast, though, we have Callum Turner playing Newt Scamander's brother Theseus. Jessica Williams plays a Professor Hicks, and a couple other minor characters in the background that don't play that much. So things like I said that worked well, I think were there's three things that I think worked well. The villainous of Grindelwald, the relationship between Grindelwald and Dumbledore, and I think Jacob Kowalski is coming in as a muggle in this world where he's at. I think does very well. The rest of the movie I think is pretty hit and miss. I feel like this movie suffers from having too many characters that aren't too involved in the plot, but are just enough to be there. As much as I liked Eddie Redmayne's, Callum Turner's, and some other people's performances, like Jessica Williams as Professor Hicks, they weren't really. They took away so much of the heart of the movie in my eyes, and what Dumbledore had them do. But I do have to say the way the movie ends, I think gives them all a solid ending for this film. And in my personal opinion, I wouldn't be upset if instead of a Fantastic Beast movie, that we get one more movie in this prequel type world with featuring Grindelwald and what happens there, where it's just Dumbledore and Grindelwald being the focus. And if we see people like Newt or um, Jacob in this world, they come in as very minor side characters because very much like in Harry Potter, how you have the Nevilles and the Lunas that come in every now and then. It's clear the story isn't about Newt Scamander anymore. It's very much about Dumbledore and Grindelwald. So I think those characters were wrapped up very well, and it's good to put that behind and move forward into that direction. Without going too much into spoilers, I think they also handled the Credence in his Dumbledore lineage pretty well. Um, I don't think that people bought into it at the end of the last movie. And while his history and what happens with him is very, very weak overall as a narrative and pushed very much aside, I think that was a smart move because I think that's a storyline that just wasn't going to hit right and wasn't written very well. And I think they do the best job they can of making it work in the inner world of Harry Potter. Now, what are some things I think are issues with this movie? First thing is barrier to entry. I think you need to watch a video going in of what the last movie was like so you can be aware of everything that's going on. But you also have to be very involved with the Harry Potter world and know how it works per se. Um, which I think is good for hardcore fans. But even if you're just like a person who watched the Harry Potter movies and read the books and you haven't followed much on the Fantastic Beasts movies, I think you're going to feel lost and confused for a lot of this movie. If I'm thinking about another negative, is if you're somebody who's that involved in the wizarding world and the history and all the stories that come from it and these characters, I think the whole plot of the movie that they send, the main crux per se, the basic crux is very meaningless and has no stakes because you know what's good. You know how the solution's going to be per se. And I think it takes away a lot of stakes on this movie overall. You know, so it's like a double-edged sword. Not only does it have a big barrier to entry where you have to really know this world and be, know going in, Fantastic Beast, The Crimes of Grindelwald, the second movie, and understand where the characters are coming from. But if you know too much about the world, you kind of know the history of everything that happens. So when they have the main crux of this movie be this potential, you know, election per se, you know how it's going to go because you've already been told what the history of Grindelwald in a bit in Harry Potter. Um, and what they were presenting was obviously too big for it to go by in Harry Potter uh, in his movies. But so that's kind of my thought, and those were kind of my main issues overall with it. Was the one the barrier to entry, and you really had to know what you were going in, but also the stakes of the movie felt very small and unimportant for as big as they tried making it out to seem. You're okay to have a movie with small stakes, but don't present it as something greater than what it was when you know what's going to happen. Because that's an important part about stakes is you don't know how it's going to end. But this movie, you knew exactly how it was going to end. The beasts in this movie are a very small role, but they do a pretty good one. There's really only two new beasts per se you kind of go through, and each has their own individual role per se. Um, but yeah, that's kind of my basic thoughts here. Spoiler free per se. Now, if I gotta go to my rankings of the year, I have this movie coming right in at number 8. It was an enjoyable movie. I'm a fan of Harry Potter world, so I enjoy seeing this wizarding world and it be more adult in some ways, but I also didn't like feeling that the stakes were pretty low, and because I knew, just even from the books of Harry Potter and the movie of Harry Potter, that the things they were presenting were just not going to happen as if they were presenting it as a crux in the movie. Um, I think the scenes with Dumbledore and Grindelwald and their relationship being answered and the conversations in the about their relationship were very strong. I think the middle part of the movie where they're splitting this group up into multiple teams, I think you have too janky and you fall in between. Um, and the overall conclusion is unsatisfying in some ways for what they're leading up to. What I will say though is because the relationship between Dumbledore and Grindelwald were so strong, and something did happen at the end of this movie that will affect future conflicts per se. I'm excited to see what the next step is, and if I was the team here, I would end the Fantastic Beasts saga here, and I would move forward with a Grindelwald Dumbledore movie. I don't know how you would title it per se, but I think the story is theirs and only theirs at this point. But I didn't enjoy this as much as Sonic or Scream, per se. I didn't think it was entirely bad. I think people who like Harry Potter, who like that wizarding world, should go in and enjoy this movie. But I don't think you're going to get a big cohesive movie that you're going to really sit there and enjoy. If you're looking for something that's going to be inspirational and as magical with chemistry as you have with the Harry Potter series. Um, that's kind of my thoughts overall. Have you seen Secrets of Dumbledore? If you have, let me know what you think below. Um, if you like the video, please give it a like, leave a comment below, maybe subscribe if you want. I'm trying to put these out more and more and more, so we're coming up into summer movie season, so I should be doing one or two of these reviews a week. We'll probably do Father Stew this weekend too at some point. Um, but yeah, thank you for watching. Um, yeah, like I said, I would recommend this to somebody who really enjoys the Harry Potter world, but don't go in expecting great chemistry between the characters and a top level story per se. Um, and if you don't like Harry Potter, I don't think this movie is for you overall. I think it's pretty low recommendation for me when it comes to people if you're not somebody who's into that wizarding world experience. But yeah, thank you again. Share your thoughts below. Hope to see you next time. And until next time, stay safe.